All right. Teach your sons that cooking and cleaning are basic life skills and not gender roles. Yeah, I did I think it was a video. It may have just been like a text post on Facebook a week or two or three maybe ago about a meme that, communicated the same basic idea. And on that one, I went with an angle basically about the fact that you never ever hear a post telling people to teach their daughters how to be a wife, things like being agreeable and how to keep a home and how to cook and how to raise children and how to that sort of stuff. How, you never see any of that kind of stuff and whatever. But in this video, I'm going to go with a little bit of a different angle. Okay, a little bit of a different angle. I'll try to be a little educational about something that's really, it's only loosely related to the original post here from this Hood Thoughts. And I know there's a lot of like fake accounts out there, and there's a lot of like even like businesses who just create these pages and they have these names that are unrelated to them, and they're just trying to just get paid for the content. And sometimes they're just trying to steer the conversation for social engineering reasons. But it's still, even with that said, it's always kind of humorous to me when there'll be something like that picture. I'm old. I'm 54 years old. I used to have great eyesight, but now, I'm like the little cartoon mole. But I do wear contacts, which I don't have in this morning. And as you can see, I don't have my reading glasses on either, but I can still look at that little profile thumbnail there and see that that's a white chick. And everything, and probably a fairly middle-class white chick with some dude in probably a shirt and tie standing beside her. I can tell it's a long sleeve, probably like dress shirt or button-down collar shirt. So, but I don't know if it's a tie or not. It kind of looks like a shadow there. But at any rate, it is not the face or the appearance of people that you would expect to be the profile picture for a page called Hood Thoughts. I don't know. Maybe they're talking about a hood on their winter coat or a hood on their cars, something like that. Maybe that's what they mean. But at any rate, I do digress. But that's what I'm known for. Teach your sons that cooking and cleaning are basic life skills, not gender roles. All right. I had a young man last night on the No Fugazi podcast tell me something that I've had many people tell me on a Facebook post that I've made over the last few years. And that is, he was telling me that whenever I'm in an argument with someone or a debate, and I don't like them as a person, maybe they irritate me or something, or I don't agree with what they're saying, that instead of presenting an argument and defeating their position, which that would tell you right there, he hadn't talked to me very much because I don't have a problem defeating their arguments or, their position. But that instead of doing that I just call them feminine, because I'm just trying to insult them, to kind of shame them and make them quiet when I say, well, that's a feminine thought, or that's a feminine way of saying that, or that's a feminine understanding. And they say, well, you're just trying to insult me by calling me feminine. Which they don't, as a side note, they don't understand that if they think I'm trying to insult them by calling them feminine, that they have to first think that being womanly or being a woman or being feminine is somehow another an insult. Which would tell you right there that maybe they're the misogynist. At any rate, but that's not actually what I'm doing. I'm just describing the way that women traditionally, I'm talking about the basic pattern. In the words of Jesse Lee Peterson, not all, but most. I mean, not all women, Dane, correct, but the exceptions prove the stereotype. Okay, the way that most women think, the way that most women's thought processes and understanding and stuff operates, doesn't mean that the way that they think is bad. It's the way that they think, okay? The way a hammer works is not bad. It's the way the hammer was designed. Driving nails and such is the best use for the hammer according to its design. There's nothing morally immoral, meritorious, or anything about it. That's the way the hammer was designed, and it works very well in its proper context. Okay? Window glazing is not a very good place to use the hammer's designed characteristics. Mixing a cake. I mean, it would work better mixing a cake than glazing in glass, but it still wouldn't be very good design, and everything. It doesn't mean that I'm saying hammers are good or bad, or that, putty knives and mixers are better than a hammer. It just means they have a design purpose. See, so a feminine mind, God created women to be more agreeable, to be more emotionally, attuned and that sort of stuff. He did that for a purpose. And within its proper context, nothing wrong with it. But when it gets out of its cage and it gets rogue out there into places where those superpowers, those things are not being used for what their highest and best use is, well, then it causes problems and it's places that it should not be, and it ends up hurting communities and families and so on and so forth. And so that's what I want to do, is kind of get into that. And it's not just women. When I say, oh, well, that's the feminine mindset. Like when I talk about how the Western church has been feminized. Some people, they get upset with me. Oh, well, you just crapping on women. You just don't like women. You're a misogynist and all that kind of stuff, But that's not true, because there are many, 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 many men out there who they've either been raised by a single mother, or there are many, many, many of them out there that just naturally are bent towards a more feminine understanding and thought processes and behavior. You see, and there's a big difference in saying that a man is a feminine thinking man and saying a man is an effeminate man. When I say a man is a feminine thinking man, I am not in the slightest bit, not even a shadow of saying that he is in any way prissy or flamboyant or girlish or anything going towards that LBGT end of the spectrum. It's not even on the radar. I'm saying the way that he perceives things in his reality as he looks around and he sees things, the way that he understands them, the way that he processes those thoughts in his head, and the things that he sets in that situation, in those thoughts, the things that he sets as a priority to him, his ability or lack thereof to make a reasonable forecast in the future and guess. It's a guess, but it's an educated guess, to reasonably guess what the consequences and effects will be in the future of his decision, one way or the other, and that sort of stuff. I'm saying that the way he does all of that, the way that he handles conflict and that sort of stuff, is a lot more like a woman would do, the stereotypical woman would do. And it's because he has a feminine way of thinking. Nothing to do with being effeminate. Okay? It got nothing to do with his sexual orientation or any of that sort of stuff. So, in this regard, this guy right here, Robert Makzuski, that's interesting. I don't know, Makzuski. The ski would lead me to believe that he was of Polish descent, but the Mac would make me believe that he was probably, I think that's Scottish. I get them confused. I think that Mick, MC, is Irish. The Irish and the Scots are cousins. I think MC is Mick, and Mac, I think, is Scottish. Like, I think Mick Gregor, I think, would be Irish, but Mac Gregor, I think, would be Scottish. I don't know, anyway, but I've never heard of Mac Polish. Mac Zuski. I don't know. They may not even be related at all. I mean, the Z is not capitalized, but it's social media. But again, I digress. Yeah. All right. Teach your daughters mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, basic house maintenance, and so on are basic skills, not gender roles. All right. This gal threw this out because she wanted to stimulate some guys to come out. She wanted girls to come out and say, "That's right, girl. That's right. It's just basic gender roles. You tell them." And then she wanted some guys to come out and do exactly what this guy did, and that is react emotionally. And it's a very common thing amongst women when they are trying to engage in discussions like this, to where they'll try to out-sass one another, or they'll have the cutest, pithiest, funniest, or the most patronizing, the most demeaning little one-liners or little comebacks, kind of like little children. You know what I'm saying? I'm rubber, you're glue, bounces off me and sticks on you, that kind of stuff. Well, that grows on out into the 20s and 30s and 40s, 50s. Men, by and large, quit doing that after like elementary school. But because men move on to the understanding that they can settle their conflicts with physical violence, so that keeps down a lot of that. But since women don't have to deal with physical violence on an ongoing basis, then they can continue with that sort of, bounce off of me, sticks on you. I know you are, but what am I? And that kind of stuff. They can continue doing with that. Of course, the words will change because they'll get older, but it'll be expressing the same sentiment. It's the same business plan for them. And so that's why she threw that out. And so that's this guy right here. That's what tells me that this guy right here handles his conflicts also from a feminine perspective, because he played right into it. He should try to sass her out. "Oh, yeah, well, y'all want us to do, the house cleaning and the cooking? Well, she can get out here and, mow the lawn and fix the fence and roof the house and stuff like that," which is a valid point to make. But it draws him into what's going to be would be an unproductive conversation, because all she's going to do is come back with a comeback, and it'll be a little sassier, and then he can sass her back, and back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. That is two feminine minds met right there. One of them looks to be a male, the other looks to be a female. Here's what I would do. If someone, especially if they would say it to me in person: "Teach your sons that cooking and cleaning are basic life skills, not gender roles." I would ask that lady what she would say would be, first I would ask her what she would say the job is, the duties are of men within a marriage, right? Like, what does she think that the job of a man is? I like to use a hyperbole. For those of you who are unaware, a hyperbole is using an extreme example. Women, in a discussion like this, you use a hyperbole, and they'll try to say that the hyperbole negates your point. They'll say, "Well, you're just trying to use the most extreme example ever." Yes, it's called hyperbole. And a hyperbole is when you use an extreme example to highlight a point. You're not saying the extreme example happens a whole bunch, or it's not an extreme example, it's normal. You're not saying that. You're saying, "Let me use this extreme example to illustrate the point I'm trying to make." And that's what I do. So I'll try to use an extreme example here that I use all the time. Husband and wife are dead asleep. They feel some home invader. They hear some home invader kicking their front door. Who do people, and who does that woman expect to be the one to get out of the bed to go try to defend the children and the spouse? It's going to be that man. It's going to be that man. So they very much believe that men have duties in the relationship. If the bottom falls out of my hot water heater right now while I'm trying to video this, no one is going to say that Deidre should go run and turn the house water off and turn the water heater off and start trying to find stuff to dry up the water and go on to Lowe's.com and see how soon they can get another water heater and go get the water heater and bring it in and get in there and do all of that plumbing with the copper and the soldering and the sweating and all that to make sure that gets taken care of. Nobody's going to do that, because men certainly have duties. We have duties to either do it ourselves or have the resources to pay someone to do it. The culture doesn't mind one bit laying duties at the feet of men, the least of which is the Selective Service Registration, where we sign up. So if a war breaks out and they need to invoke a draft like they did during the Vietnam conflict, they know who we are, they know where to find us, they know how many military capable bodied males they have in the country that they could force into the army. They know that. Women don't have that duty. They don't have that duty at all. So I would ask the lady what duties it is that she believes that men have in the home besides washing dishes and that kind of stuff. And you can bet she's got plenty of it. I would ask her how much she expected a husband of hers to earn every year. You see, I would talk to her about how most homes, like if she is married and in a dual income home, with both people working, I would ask her how much the two of them made separately. And almost without exception, she's going to make half as much as him or less. See, and then I would go in and I would talk about how, okay, so he's going to work. Because a woman would say, well, I work 40 hours a week too. Yes, you work 40 hours a week to earn $40,000. He works 40 hours a week to earn $120,000. So together, y'all are earning $160,000. Okay, so you're earning, what would that be if he's 120? So you're earning 30% of what he's earning. So you want him to go to work, and he's going to earn 70% of the income to pay for that house, to pay for that food that's getting cooked, and to pay for those dishes that are getting washed, and to pay for that floor and the mop and everything that's getting swept and mopped and stuff. He's paying for 60% of it, 70% of it. You're paying for 30%. But you want him to come home after he's contributed 70% to the home and its operation. You expect him to come home and do the hot water heater, the fence, hang the light in the garage. You expect him to contribute 70%, do the things that are typically considered around the home to be male responsibilities. You expect him to be willing for the husband to get beaten up or killed by a home intruder. You expect him to do all of that and then come and do some cooking and some dishwashing and some floor sweeping and some laundry and stuff like that. So I would do that. I would deconstruct her whole little sassy, passive-aggressive little statement right here. Teach your sons that. She's wanting you to go in head to head like this guy did down here. Well, you should teach your daughter this and that kind of stuff. But I don't typically argue like that. Sometimes I do, because sometimes it's just the best way to go. But typically what I do when I'm in an argument with somebody, I coined this phrase years ago. I coined this phrase back in my 20s when I would do this with somebody in a discussion when I know that they're trying to distract me with some old bull crap like that. I call it flanking them, like the Army. It might be a frontal assault, and, it might be getting kind of dicey on the frontal assault. And then, a general or whatever will take a group of the soldiers and they'll circle around and come in from the side of the other army. Because it's kind of hard to shoot to the side and shoot in front at the same time. It's kind of hard to do that. That's called flanking the enemy. That's kind of what I'm doing when I do this technique I just described, is that I will completely ignore their frontal assault, and then I'll come around the side and flank their underlying premise. See, her underlying premise, well, it's not even underlying. These skills are not gender roles. What she means is the skills that are generally considered the female's skills and the female's duties, somehow suddenly they're not gender roles. Registering for selective service, that's a gender role. Fighting off the thug that kicks in the front door, gender role. Laying out there in the backyard at 10 o'clock at night in 20-degree weather, after you've dug a hole and you're laying down on your stomach in the mud, repairing a water line that had come loose. That's a gender role all of a sudden. So that's what I would do is I would flank them and I would ask her what she believes a man's duties outside of housekeeping and stuff actually are. And I would ask her what she thought a woman's duties were. And then I would take her through that little discussion, that little example I just gave about the income differences. Because a lot of women who say this kind of stuff, they don't stop to think about the stress and the anxiety and the burden that man is under going to work 40 hours a week to work a job to earn 60, 70, 80%, the bulk of the income. While she goes and earns 25, 30% of the income. And in her mind, they're equal. They're equal in leadership in the home. I'm not talking about equal in human value. But in her mind, because, well, we both work 40 hours, but how much do you get in those 40 hours to bring home to actually contribute to the family? But the priority, I guess, is not how much she can actually contribute to the family outside of herself, nearly as much as it is the pleasure and the feelings of validity and that kind of stuff she earns by doing what the boys do too. Well, I go to work too. I have a full-time job too. But what does that end up adding to the family's benefit? And not just the fact that you enjoy going to work or whatever. And if you look at it like that, that man is almost always going to work and earning money doing a job that's more stressful, more of a burden. It will age him, wear out his mind and body a lot faster than the job she does. But he's doing that in order to bring home 75%, 80%, 90% of the income to the home. So if he's doing that and he comes home, what is she doing to make up the gap between her 30% and his 70%? See, because these women that have these kind of attitudes, they'll say, well, this is both of our homes, so we need to do our fair share. What's a fair share? Are we going to do this a 50-50? That seems fair. So if her income is only bringing in, 30%, it would seem that she owes him about 20%. Because otherwise, she is economically coming home and sitting on the couch while he's washing the dishes in an economic sense, right? I mean, we want to have our fair share. It's both of our homes. We should do this equally, okay? Well, I contribute 70% to us even having this house to live in. That Coach bag you're carrying, I paid for 70% of it, lady. You paid for 30% of it. So that's a 40% difference. So that means you owe me 20%. Otherwise, I'm getting taken advantage of. So they don't want to think about it like that. They don't want to think about it like that. They just want to think about 40 hours and 40 hours, and this is both of our house, and I come home and I'm tired and I don't want to cook and clean. And you know what? My wife, Miss Deidre, that woman of mine, my little Tasmanian devil, she worked for nearly 20 years as a refinery mechanic, which is heavy industry. That's pipe fitting, welding, that kind of stuff, boiler making, kind of stuff. She did that for almost 20 years. She earned more money per year than, definitely above average, but I would go so far as to say she earned more money than most men do in our area down here in South Alabama, South Mississippi area, down here on the Gulf Coast. But when she punched her clock out, when she punched her clock and went home, I swear my mom used to say to my brother Justin, he just got the worst timing of any one human being I've ever met. He does too. He does. And that was him right there. Just, I'm near the end of my video and here he comes, my ringtone. BB screaming at me. BB King over talking about the thrill is gone. My. At any rate, when Miss Deidre, the Degenator, Dieter, when she punched that clock, she went from being a refinery mechanic out there at Chevron. She went from that right back to that submitted helpmate. She went right back to being a wife. And when she came home, she didn't come home no expecting Dane to have cooked no supper. Now, I like to cook. And there was a lot of times that I had something I wanted, hey, I hadn't had such and such in a while. And it's one of those dishes that if you're going to do it right, it takes all day to do, and you got to kind of watch it. And I have time today, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and cook that. You know, one of those, that's kind of cooking we do. We don't cook out of a box. We start with the rudimentary ingredients, and sometimes it'll take you all day to get a dish right. So I'm not saying that I didn't cook. I cook a lot. I like cooking, though. That sort of stuff. It's like a hobby sometimes. But it was not expected for me to do the cooking. It was not expected for me to do the laundry. Can I wash a load of laundry? I'm a grown man. I'm not dependent. But it's not expected for me to do laundry. Don't mind doing it. I could get up away from this video right now and go in there and wash a load. That's not true. It's been so long since I actually did laundry. I'd have to. I think it's still up there, but back when the kids was home, she actually had directions printed out from the computer, taped to the wall over the washer and dryer, because she's very picky. She's a lot pickier about her laundry than she is her husband, right? So, but I could. I mean, I could go wash and dish. I was raised by a single mother. I can do all of that. But I don't have to, because it's not expected. Deidre Snyder can open her own doors, but she don't have to. She don't have to. She got a husband for that. Deidre Snyder, I called her a little Tasmanian devil for a reason. If there was a home invader kicking the door, y'all pray for the home invader. I'm not saying that she's helpless. She could give him a run for his money, but she don't have to. She don't have to. So that's the way it is, and I'm dang.